hand it to your lawyer, and then they can. That would be I would think that would be a good thing for the lawyer too.
Any lawyer would probably appreciate that. Of course, I think my last conversation with Lexus, they want about $150 a month. They want a 1-year contract to let you do that research.
Wow.
And you trying to do that research, what you discovered is that search, whatever it is, whoever conducts it, Westlaw, Lexus, their algorithm on bringing it forward. And if you go out and decide you're going to research it on the internet, who knows what they come up with.
Yeah, it should be more accessible. It should be more accessible to the people, because I feel like, people are just disagreeable. So if I just said, hey, the sky is blue, you might say, well, it's actually light blue, and just to disagree. So I feel like if I say, it's illegal for a dog to bite a human, it's illegal for a dog to bite a person, the police officer on the scene might be like, oh, no, I don't think so. So I feel like if I have a list of, here's some of the statutes, then at least I'm farther along than what he is. At least I got some, a piece of paper that's saying here's, according to LexisNexis as of 2019, this is what I found out.
Well, yeah, but now see that officer, you're kind of mixing apples and oranges. The only thing he's doing is arresting or performing his duties based on what he sees that law to be.
Right.
And then once it comes into court, you've got the county attorney here in Kentucky, or the Commonwealth attorney, and the defense attorney and the judge deciding whether or not that's a violation or whether or not the officer was perhaps factually not correct, So his job out there, it's like used to I'd have some officers, and that'd be kind of hurt if their DUI case wasn't successful. And I always told them, I said, you did your job.
Well, that's if they arrest them, I guess.
Drinking and got them off the road at that time.
No, that's if they arrest them. I guess what I'm wondering is, okay, what if I say that a dog biting a human is illegal, and they say, nuh-uh, and no arrest is made, it never goes into court, the county attorney, I guess I'd have to go over his head or something and go directly to them.
You go to the county attorney and present it to them. And, in Kentucky, I just tell you, it about stops there. If the county attorney says we're not pursuing that,
yeah,
and they have discretion, I don't know that they have to pursue every crime, right?
Right.
First of all, if you tied their time up pursuing every crime, then the sexual molestation case, they may not have time for that case. They're not going to, it's going to be a time thing at some point.
So they probably prioritize. Sorry.
It's like in the court system, if everyone said they wanted a jury trial.
Yeah.
If everybody got indicted this month said, I want a jury trial, well, it'd probably take a year to try those cases.
So then, can we agree? Because it would seem like you're saying that they have a list of priorities. So essentially, major crimes are, more important than lesser crimes. Is that what you're saying?
They probably, I'm sure that in the prosecution of crimes, they select. Well, it may not be more important. It may be what's the potential for a conviction. Because anytime you look at a crime, okay, who's my witnesses? How strong are my witnesses? Where did they see it from? How can they properly recollect, and do they have similar stories, or do they have dissimilar stories? And how are they going to send to a jury? And how strong is that jury on a criminal case to be able to tell me are they prosecutorial oriented? Sometimes you have juries that find more guilt verdicts than others, some that find less. There's a lot that goes into what case we're going to prosecute.
Well, you're saying how much they can convict a case, but I guess there's violence, there's stealing, there's pedophilia, there's arson. If someone burnt down your house, there's rape, there's murder. So I feel like those are 6, and I feel like can you think of anything worse than those? Maybe slavery, but that's like a condition, that's a state of but
kidnapping and all that. Slavery.
Kidnapping, good one. So, when it comes to specific ones, it seems like, okay, what if, you have someone who says there's a kidnapping case, but it's not, it might be hard to convict, but you got one witness testimony, one isolated, person out there that says, I witnessed so-and-so, doing this. So it would seem like that would take priority for me, because that's, that's worse. That's one of the worst things you could do to people.
Well, I agree, but now I'm a judge and I'm not a prosecutor, so you kind of get me out of my area.
I am, but that's all right. I got 2 more questions if you want to get back on track.
Sure.
What ways do you think the Kentucky Appeals Court needs to improve on, if any?
Well, I'm not up there right now, so...
Well, you were there for 7 years, right?
I was there for 7 years. I think everything worked well. Of course, I understand my opponent says, well, there's a backlog of cases. I don't know of any backlog.
She also mentioned
guidelines on how fast you move the cases through. I was within guidelines.
Yeah.
There's some different committees formed to look into that. I remember we doing that. The revamping of the rules. Any rule you have, you can always tweak it as it goes on. Secondly, as conditions change and the law changes, some of your rules may need to change.
Right.
As to, be able to move the cases through and have everything go through in a quick and orderly fashion. But you got to get it right. You can't do it too quick to not get it right. As one attorney said, well, I don't know what speed they travel through the Court of Appeals, but he said, I'd rather they get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. You want a
decision
and badly consider it. You want the judges there to have an amicable or sufficient time to look at it and make a discerned decision. Different ones look at it in different ways, and people talk about it as time to get one through, but, it's not just the judges. It doesn't come to just the judges. You file them, and they go through all briefing, they go through settlement conferences, they go through motion panel before it ever gets to the judge.
I got you. Last question. You ready? You mentioned about, you didn't like that I called you the elite. I still kind of feel that you're the elite. Maybe more precise would be more elite than me. But you mentioned that you're a used car salesman, right? You're a used car salesman?
I did. When I graduated Transylvania University in 1977.
Yeah. How much did that cost?
I went to dental school and quit that. I decided I didn't want to be a dentist. I worked for coal companies, operating heavy equipment. I drove tractor trailers, hauled rock, built roads. I worked on a coal auger. I taught school. I had a chemistry biology certificate. The used car thing was about 4 months, but it was very enlightening.
All those jobs you just mentioned sound like not dream jobs, but they sound like pretty good, quality, respectable jobs. You ever waited tables? You ever worked like in a sewage plant or a slaughterhouse or used car salesman? That's the one I was like, okay, because that would be so hard to have to sell used cars, and then you got to do a good job at it. And then I know how I feel when I walk on a used car sale lot.
Yeah. Well, I shoveled manure. I started out shoveling manure out of horse stalls.
Yeah, me too.
Out there.
Pig stalls for me. But
I had to dig mud out of you had to dig the mud streak out of a coal seam.
Mm.
And I'll tell you, when you're standing on top of the mountain and the coal is black, the sun's coming down, and that temperature gets to about 120, and you're trying to stand on it with your feet.
Oh, man. I complain about cutting tobacco. That sounds worse than cutting tobacco.
And, and you're sitting there and you're trying to dig this. They say, buddy, take that mud out of that coal seam right there. Of course, it may be 6 inches deep. It may be 12 inches deep. You're trying to dig it out with a pick and shovel. Say, buddy, knock that coal. Of course, really what they did is if nothing else was going on, they found something for you to do. So you did the rest.
Yeah.
Then I was a field agent for the Kentucky Department of Energy, and I was a mine inspector for Bureau of Surface Mining back before it became a department.
Yeah, that's cool.
And, I don't know what else. I'm sure I always stayed employed doing something. When I got out of school, when I graduated college, I remember I tried to get a job pumping gas, and they wouldn't hire me. If we hire you and teach you how to pump gas, so I didn't think it'd take a lot of instruction to do that.
No.
I didn't think so. But it appeared to me that, basically what they were saying is, the next job that comes along that's a lot better, you're going to take it anyway, so we're not going to waste our time teaching you to pump gas.
Right.
So, anyway, I guess that comes to maybe your overeducated aspect of it.
Yeah, how much did Transylvania University cost in 77 or the 70s?
Oh, geez.
I heard that you could work a summer's job and pay for college, back in the day.
I'm thinking it was like $3,500 a semester, maybe.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember. 77, 87, 97, 07, 17. Well, looking at 42 years ago. It was reasonable at that point.
$3,500 a semester?
I think that's what it was. But, they had all these... that make them that will get it close to comparable to public school system. University of Kentucky, of course. I don't think they could get to the University of Kentucky level at that time, but now University of Kentucky, I think, charges quite a bit now.
Yeah, sure. I got student debt. It seems like it's...
and a lot of it's going to depend on, where you live, and can you live at home, and can get back and forth to class. Well, your living expense, I'm sure, is a large part of what it costs you to go to school.
What percentage, sorry, back to the appeals thing, I want to make sure I get, all my questions. So, what percentage would you say were reversible, or that you affirmed the trial court's decision versus overturning them?
Well, that's going to be a guess.
Yeah, guesstimate. Is it more like 90-10, 50-50? Is there...
You're probably, really reversing them. Maybe I'd hate to guess at it. It may have been 50-50, but there was probably, I guess I was on, while at the Court of Appeals, close to 600 cases. It'd be hard to guess at.
But there's a bunch. You're saying there's a bunch of them, though, that have been reversed. So if it was just a couple here and there, it seemed like it'd be easy to say. But if you reversed...
No, it's not just a couple. You'll have more than just a couple. It's more than 20%, I'm sure.
Okay.
But, I don't want to give you a firm figure. What do you do with all these answers?
I am a political science nerd, so I just compare and contrast the policy and the platform, and I see which one I like best.
What do you think about my platform? I don't know. Do I have a platform at all?
It was hard for me to pick up specific ones with reversible errors, but you do have a whole body of work, so I guess I'm thrilled. This conversation, I know that you can empathize with me and you're talking to me. I'm regular folk, so I feel like that says to me more than anything. You said a couple of the things that would reversible errors, but I guess I want to get on LexisNexis and check out some of your cases because I'm sure, maybe it's just a lack of detail. It's just here's a quick hypothetical. You said constitutional, anything that breaks the Constitution, that's a reversible error. And you said a couple other things. There was one specific incident point that your opponent had mentioned about hearsay. If hearsay is introduced into the trial that substantially impacts the decision, then that could be something that would be a reversible error too.
Hearsay, I mean, okay, hearsay, that's an evidentiary error. You know, you have a hearsay rule. Anything said out of court is hearsay, first of all.
Okay.
Then it goes through all those exceptions. Well, we've got the newspaper exception. You know, it's reported in the newspaper, and it's some historic exceptions, and an admission, which is an exception because it's out of court statement by a party to the action. The hearsay rule is simple. If you set it out of court, it's hearsay.
Yeah.
It's fraught with exceptions that go every which way.
I guess the way I was understanding it, if like that thing you were saying about previous evidence, so if someone says, well, that person, you know, that was a murder 10 years ago, but it's a DUI case, well, that doesn't really impact the actual DUI case, but it would prejudice the jury. So the hearsay, that seems like that would be hearsay that would change the decision.
It's kind of like you can't unhear it once you've heard it.
Right, right.
You know, and judge can kind of look at that. You're a little better, you know, judges, I like to think they can separate that out quite well. But just general public, no, once they hear that, there's balancing tests you go through, you know.
Right.
The need for the evidence versus how prejudiced it will, and how prejudicial it'll be, and the likelihood of the jury misusing it. There's just a lot of, in a lot of those cases, it's not as clear as just abuse of discretion. It comes in as, well, how much did it prejudice the jury? How much did they misuse it? Was this the reason that they made the decision they did? And then they have cumulative error. So it gives like, well, that one error didn't do it, and this one error didn't do it, and these other 17 didn't do it, but all together,
yeah, they
were a cumulative error, and just you know, it's reversible. Now, I will tell you, I can recall one of the reasons the state police at one point, I don't know that they didn't have a policy in effect, but they kind of tightened their policy. You know, they wanted to avoid on your roadblocks, and mind, DUIs and roadblocks.
Yeah.
And they don't want, if the law enforcement should understand that there's a party going on at the country club, right?
Yeah.
They want you to run out there that night and set up roadblocks to surprise everybody.
Right.
That's what they try to get away from, because then what you're doing, it's not a happenstance. You're focusing on a particular area to seize particular people. And so you get some constitutional involvement then.
It kind of feels like pre-crime, too, so it's like, well, since it might happen, then we're going to go ahead and just act like it's going to happen. So it's just assuming everybody's criminals. Oh, you're driving on this road? Well, you must be a criminal. You need to stop.
You come out of there, they're all drinking, so, you know, we pretty much rest them all. And so they want to get away from that. You asked some good questions. I get good answers. You know, you've talked a while about, you've given your questions thought. I have to kind of answer them on the fly here.
You did a great job answering questions. There's no problem with that. I guess the problem that I'm having with, I guess, both of you, both of the two appeals court candidates, is that in order to find out what's a reversible error, you don't really have many rules about this is definitely a reversible error. But since cases have so many different elements and so many different, you know, there's this witness and there's this way to look at it, and it's just so specific that, okay, if this, you know, if A, B, C, D, and E happens, then it's a reversible error. So I think to really just get down in the case law and get into the weeds on your court cases, I probably just have to pull them up myself. If you had, like, you know, well, this court case, you know, we had this reversible error, and then that would be a court case that both y'all could sort of agree or disagree on, and that would put you all at least on the...
Well, she's going to have... my opponent, probably since she's never been a judge and never been at the appellate level, she's probably going to have a little harder time, I would think. And maybe she'd be great at it. I don't know. Being able to understand what's reversible and what isn't. Have you ever supervised anyone that does a job?
Yeah. Well, for 6 months, I was on a Nader campaign. I had a little team I supervised.
Really? What did you supervise them doing?
Getting signatures. We had to get 40,000 signatures to get them on the ballot in Illinois, so we would have to go out on the, subways.
Let me ask you this. Now, of course, getting signatures, that's maybe not real technical, but did you ever go out and get signatures?
Sure. Sure.
What did it put you in a position that you could better evaluate and review and encourage your people to go out and get signatures because you had actually gone out yourself and gotten signatures? Yeah,
of course.
Well, that's kind of like the appellate system. When you sit and review these trial courts, most people would think, well, you got to have some trial court experience. I've been in trial courts for 15, 18 years, circuit and district both. You got to have some experience because you're going to be reviewing what that judge does.
Sure.
And you're going to have some understanding of discretion, and you have to have more understanding of what he gets hit with while he's sitting there on the bench. That goes back to he makes a decision in 5 seconds, and the Court of Appeals take 5 days to look at it.
Yeah, I think that was a great analogy too. So, I want to say something about that because I think it probably would help you. That's essentially going to be your strength is your experience, and then her newness. She's not as resilient to change. So I think that it's kind of like Obama and Hillary, right? Hillary was experienced, and then he was new, but he was a lawyer, so he's done stuff. So I feel like she probably could judge. She's probably qualified. So I see it both ways. I see that good experience, that would help a lot, but then you could also be so stuck in the system that you don't, nothing's ever going to be changed whatsoever. And so I could see it both ways. The experience could be really good, or the experience could make you so, immovable that no, this is the only way we've done it, and this is how we're going to do it forever and ever.
Did you ever do any plumbing at your location?
Yeah, I've done plumbing.
You don't have a plumbing license, do you?
No, I don't.
Well, I don't either, and I do plumbing at times. I'm a little more innovative in how I do my plumbing, I like to think, than if I've been trained. Because I've been trained to do that plumbing, you're kind of stuck and stoic into this how you do it. And if you figure it out yourself, then you may come up with an innovative way of doing that.
Sure.
And I think that the broader you have in life experience, and I think that's one thing that probably kept me elected over the years, and the more things that you do in life, not just your jobs, but your educational, help you. You scuba dive?
No, I've never scuba dived.
Well, you get to learn about pressures and how that water affects you and how the, nitrogen narcosis, and you actually can overindulge oxygen also. You ever fly an airplane?
Briefly, I was allowed to hold on the controls.
Oh. Well, now, really, I'm going to tell you about flying an airplane.
Okay.
I'll teach you to fly in 5 minutes. It's the landing and the takeoffs and the safety that takes the rest of your life. But flying an airplane is not real difficult. You just got to look out outside the cockpit and make sure you don't run into something, and you got to be knowledgeable of your weather and systems. So what I've done in my life, of course, I had custody of my daughters when they were 5 and 7. And I had the old full custody.
Yeah.
So I raised my daughters, and since I was here at home most of the time, then I wound up with like a commercial pilot's license and flight instructor and instrument ratings. We did things like scuba dive, kayak, bicycle, powered paraglider, and I fly a little bit. But in all those are sports, but you learn from all those sports too.
Yeah.
You learn, and I rode a bike. I used to ride on sport bike track time when we go to tracks and ride. you know, and then you learn about adhesion of tires. Well, when you start talking about accidents and cases of people driving on wet roads, then you start talking about adhesion of tires.
Huh.
And
Yeah.
I first-hand experienced that because I low-sided in the higher bend turn. And I can tell you that at some point they don't stick, whether they're wet or not.
Right.
And the more experiences you have like that, you're able to correlate. There's different levels of education. You have rote, understanding, application, and correlation.
Okay.
And the correlation level is where you take all your experiences and you come up with something new that you've never handled before.
Yeah.
And you take what you learned from those experiences and apply the principles and things you've learned to be able to be successful at this new thing, whatever it is. So what I'm saying is, I guess the broader experience you have in life and doing things, and as well as education and work experience, that's really what probably kept me elected all those years. And riding a dirt bike through the woods and trail bikes and stuff like that.
You've had an exciting life, man. All that sounds so much fun.
Well, well, I tell you what now, one thing about riding motorcycles, I still got a dirt bike, and I still ride it. I don't ride a dirt bike too much, but now there's one thing about riding a dirt bike. It will certainly keep you on your toes, because if you run into a tree, you can bet that that tree doesn't bruise like you do. And but on riding on the street, you become extremely defensive with your driving. You're riding a motorcycle, which really kind of makes you pretty defensive with your car driving too, because you know you learn to watch what happens and everything. And they used to always teach you, when the guy looks at you, you look at a car on the side of the road, and if they're about to pull out, you look at the driver to see if they look at you. Well, I also look to see if I see the tires start to rotate.
Oh.
Because they can look at you and pull out, but if they're looking at you and their tires start to rotate, you can figure he's just easing off. He or she is just eased off the brake. So they may be ready to pull out while they look at you.
Right.
But all those experiences come together, you know, when you're trying cases and when you're looking, applying reason and common sense for whatever comes before you and what decisions you make.
I think maybe I'll say it just better. I mean, I can see it both ways. You could also be too rigid in your ways. That plumber experience, yeah, if you're doing your own plumbing, you could do it a little differently, but if you've always done it a certain way, you're always going to do it a certain way. So that's, you know, you're not going to be as more evolutionary. The things that I liked about your opponent, she said things, a lot of times judges aren't scrutinized at all. Nobody asks them questions. It's nonpartisan, so they stick away from, you know, political issues, which, you know, there's still a lot of things to talk about. Still civil procedure, there's still the interpretation of the law, there's a lot of things that is within bounds. So the things that I liked about what she was saying, she said that the poor people, she mentioned poor people don't get access to court systems as much access as regular folks, and I thought that was pretty refreshing. You know, I was like, okay, she acknowledges that. That's like, you know, I felt that was pretty surprising. And then she criticized the Court of Appeals for two things. She says that they didn't, did you hang up on me? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? What happened? I don't know. Was it, did you hang up on me, or was it the weather or something?
It must have been, I thought your battery went down or something.
Oh, no. Okay, so it's only a couple things. There's only a handful of things that I was pretty impressed about, so I feel like it'd be easy to sort of take notes. And so she just mentioned that poor people don't get the same access. You said you would listen to a citizen the same as a lawyer, essentially, you know, as long as you cover all your bases. So you said that pretty much the same thing. And then she mentioned she was willing to criticize the Court of Appeals. You couldn't find anything, so there's a difference there. But she only mentioned two things. So she just said they need family law experience, which as a family lawyer, of course she would say something like that. The other thing, though, she said was the backlog, and you had mentioned that. So maybe the Court of Appeals is doing, a really good job. So between your reversible errors, she had 2 reversible errors, and then she criticized the Court of Appeals twice, and then she said that thing about poor people. So it's only really 5 little planks, but I felt like that's more than I've ever heard from any judge candidate ever. Usually,
well, the Court of Appeals would tell you, I think,